There are some people who actually feel like if you want to stop having sex, if you want to never enjoy life again, if you want to just throw in all of your youth and just live a boring, predictable life that you actually hate, some people feel like that's what marriage is. And I've been married for 22 years and that's not my situation at all. However, there are so many people that I talk to where that is exactly their situation. And believe it or not, like there's so many people that live in a sexless marriage. Like people have been not having sex in their marriage for months and even years, and it's really hard to fathom how do they function on a regular basis. And so I want to talk to you about how living in a sexless marriage can actually impact your income. And there are some people that I've talked to, even though they love their spouse, there's almost like this deep hatred for their spouse, like this deep like desire to like disdain them and hurt them as much as they're being hurt by not having sex. And some people might question, well, why do they stay? Some people stay out of guilt. Some people stay because they've made a covenant. Some people stay because they're in hopes that it might get better one day. Some people stay because they're living in this house of cards and they don't want anybody to know the reality of their marriage. Because sometimes people can focus more on the appearance of marriage than the actual purpose and the happiness in fulfilling their role and what they've committed to in marriage, even more so than what people think. Couples, they have this distrust for one another. Like when they don't have sex with each other, they have this distrust for each other. And they have this distrust because the natural question is, if you're not having sex with me, who are you having sex with? If you're not having sex with me and somebody else, what else are you doing? So there's all of these different things that somebody questions, because it's like, I have this desire and it's impossible for you not have the same desire that I have. And so what are you doing to get that desire met within you? The other thing is this: couples that do not have sex together, it's hard to have a strong partnership. And when you think about partnership from a financial perspective, the best partners, they make the most money. Like they have a trust for each other in certain areas where it's like, hey, I know you have this, and because you have this, I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. And it's all in alignment with the law of reciprocity. It's like when somebody is giving you something, none of us like to be in debt, whether that's physical debt, emotional debt, financial debt. And so the way that we get out of the emotional debt when somebody does something good for us is we want to do something good for them. And so when you have a partner that is like doing all of the right things for you, it's like you want to reciprocate. But when you have somebody who's not concerned about like your emotional and sexual desires and even sexual needs within a marriage, I'll talk about that a little bit too. It's like you don't really have a desire to reciprocate because you're not getting anything good to give back to them in return. They're like, if you're not giving me this in this area, like what's the point? Like what's the purpose of it anyway? Like why should I feel inspired to do anything? And sometimes it's like people can actually neglect themselves because they feel neglected in an area of sex. So one of the biggest things that people feel when they're in a sexless marriage is that they actually feel rejected. And it's like they don't just feel rejected because of sex, they feel rejected as a person. Like they feel like this person is actually rejecting me as an individual. Like, yeah, we had this great wedding day, we had this covenant, for better or for worse, all of those kind of things, but it's like they feel like that person is rejecting all of that and them. Because when you feel rejected in your marriage, it also lends itself to start to cause you to question your purpose. And it's not just your purpose in marriage, but your purpose as a person. And when you say I do, and that means that I do you, you do me, and we don't do anybody else, and you create this whole story in your mind and what you want this to be, and you actually work towards creating that to be reality for your life, and this person kind of reneges on it, if you will, by withholding sex or rejecting you sexually, you just question the purpose of everything. Because it's kind of like, hey, if we're married and we're not having sex, and let's say you're somebody who you have money to pay your own bills and things like that, it's like, what do I need you for? And or if somebody, they don't have the money, but they're like, hey, we're not intimate, I can go get a roommate. Like I can go, like, what do I need you for? And so they question their purpose. And this questioning doesn't just stop at their marriage. It causes them to question their purpose as a person. And I once heard years ago, it said where purpose and identity is unknown, abuse is inevitable. So if somebody is in a sexless marriage and they question their purpose, it's only a matter of time before the typical person is going to self-sabotage. And I'm not saying everybody, because everybody doesn't fit into this category, even though there's a lot of like phenomenal people that are in sexless marriages. But it's like, if you are in a sexless marriage and you question your purpose over time because you question what are you doing or not doing that's causing this, it's like that will cause you to self-sabotage in other areas. Because even though this might be an isolated incident, because it might not have anything to do with you at all, it caused you to just question your own personhood. And it also caused you to not trust your choices. Because it's like, if you chose this person, no matter what it was before, but if you chose this person, what else might you choose later on that's also going to end up bad like this? So it caused you to even not trust yourself. And it's like, when you don't trust yourself, it caused you to potentially be in a place of paralysis where you're just scared to move on anything. And when you're scared to move on anything, you're not taking action that can actually increase your income, because you don't trust you based on the choice that you made to pick this person who's now rejecting you intimately and causing you to feel like you don't know who you are, and they're causing you to question your purpose. If you made this choice, what else should you not choose because of how it might end up? And so many people are in those situations where they question themselves based on the actions of somebody who they fully committed to and they thought was fully committed to them. And I will say this, sometimes people just don't have the desire because of medical reasons. Like somebody can have a chemical imbalance or, hormonal, like it's so many different reasons for people not wanting or having the desire to have sex. And sometimes it's because people have been sexually abused or molested. And so some things can just trigger them to just not have a desire at all. So I do want to point that out, because that is a possibility for a lot of people, where there are some things that have gone unaddressed. And it kind of went under the radar, and it's like everything was great until the I do came, or after the I do, and something else within the marriage triggered like this turn on switch, and that might not be the other person's fault at all. But I do want to point that out as a possibility. Now, I won't say it's rare, but I will say a lot of times people in sexless marriages, that's not their reason. Like it's not chemical, it's not hormonal, and it's not that they were even sexually abused. Sometimes it's just people go into a marriage with a false sense of how it's going to turn out, and a false sense of how it's going to be, instead of seeing it for exactly what it is, and seeing the person for exactly who they are and loving them for who they are. Like sometimes people want somebody to make more money, they want a better body, they want something that's not there, instead of loving somebody unconditionally, in addition to things just changing over time. Because the reality is, like, if you've been married for any extended period of time, I don't care how much you work out, I don't care how good you eat, it doesn't matter all of the positive things you do, there's still going to be changes that take place that might be very different from who and how you looked when you first got married. And sometimes immature minds don't take that into consideration, because all they see is what's in front of them right now. Like, sometimes people don't realize that, again, if somebody's a man and they're looking at their wife, like her body doesn't look the same. It's like, you think about your wife, maybe she's had children for you, for your marriage. And it's like, never can you spit out a child. And so you're not taking into consideration all of the different things that her body has gone through to deliver this child to you. But it's like, you look at somebody else who might be 10, 15, 20 years younger, and you look at their body, they don't have a child, they don't have a covenant, they don't have anything but this body that maybe your wife, had 10, 20 years ago, but you're comparing their now body to your wife's then body and all of what she's created for you. And it's like, you should never compare your wife's body to somebody who's never had the privilege of delivering children to you. And unfortunately, there are so many men that do that out of immature thinking. On the flip side, there's a lot of immature minded women who, like, they think about their husband doesn't have a six-pack, or he doesn't have, muscles, or whatever the case may be, and they want somebody who looks like this Greek goddess, but again, that's immature thinking as well. Now, I will say, like, there are some times where people, they get into a marriage and they just let themselves go, because it was all about capturing you. And now that they have you, it's like, I don't have to impress you anymore. And I think that's a really big mistake too. And so sometimes it caused people to not be attracted to the person who they committed to, because it's like this person has almost become somebody different. Like they're not trying to date you anymore. They're not trying to impress you anymore. They're not trying to even keep themselves up anymore because they feel like they got you, and that's also a problem. And I think one of the biggest things that can overcome all of that is communication, and effective communication on both sides, because it's not just with men, but that also happens with women. And when you think about these sexless marriages, if we're being honest, there's a lot of frustration that builds up over time, which causes communication to even be that much more difficult to have, because there's a part of you where it's like you want to say certain things, but you understand that how you say something is actually more important than what you say. And when you say something with pent up and built up frustration and anger, sometimes it's hard for the receiver to receive it based on the spirit behind it. And it's not a justification whatsoever. It's just saying that sometimes communication is ineffective because of how it's said, the spirit behind it, what it said, the anger behind what it said. And somebody might be justified and rightfully so, but it's like this other person on the other end, they can't receive from you because of how you're saying it. Again, it's not what you say, but it's how you say it, because you're probably 100% right in what you say, but you might be 100% wrong in how you say it, even though you're justified. So communication is key in this situation. And if we're honest, a sexless marriage is very dysfunctional. So when you have anything that's dysfunctional, all dysfunction relies on some kind of copingism for its existence. Now, some people live in a sexless marriage, and what they do to cope with that is, like, some people, they work. Like, they just throw themselves into work because they feel like they're not enough. It's like, this person who I made this covenant with, like, they don't even desire me anymore. So what's wrong with me? And so they start to feel like the only way for me to feel valuable again is to get my value from something else, some kind of other coping mechanism that makes me feel good about me. Because when this person doesn't desire me, like, that makes me feel bad about me. And so people throw themselves into work like titles, and like that's their way of feeling significant. Because the reality is this: when you make a covenant with somebody, you're in a relationship with somebody, and they don't desire you at all, and they don't want to have sex with you at all, they don't want to be intimate with you at all, you feel very insignificant. You feel meaningless. You feel hopeless. You feel like you don't really have any value to a certain extent. And so one of the best ways for you to feel significant is by going to other people who see you in a totally different light than what this person is seeing you in right now. That causes some people to have their coping mechanism where they're emotionally cheating on their spouse. Now, I will say, in no situation, whether you're in a sexless marriage for 20 years, that still does not justify cheating. Like, to me, I really believe that it's better for you to leave than to cheat. Because, again, you've heard it before, just like I have, two wrongs don't make a right. So if you figure, hey, I'm going to do something to satisfy my needs, if you will, that's wrong on your part, even though it's wrong on their part, or the situation is wrong because, again, maybe they have something that you might not know about. But let's say that they, like, everything's normal. Like, there's no chemical imbalance. They've never been raped before, but for whatever reason, they just don't desire it, or withholding it, or whatever the case may be. You never want to put yourself in a situation where you're giving them ammunition to retaliate on you based on something that was triggered from what they did. It's like, if the other person is withholding, like, do your part to ensure that everything you could have done on your part was done, and never give this person any kind of ammunition to say that it was your fault. Because it's like, sometimes when you have like two wrong situations, the confusion sometimes comes into play of who did wrong first. And it's like, if this person is not allowing you to have sex with them and then you go cheat, then this person might say you were cheating all along. But really, it's only been the last 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever the case may be. But again, you can't prove that. And somebody that's cheating is somebody who you can't trust if they're going to be honest with you or not. And so it's like, you just want to keep yourself from being in situations where this person over here can actually justify why it's your fault, the reason why they are not having sex with you inside of this marriage. And again, I understand that some people feel like they have to get their sexual needs met. And the reality, and again, this is a totally different video, but it's like when somebody is single, it's a lot easier for somebody who's single to not have sex for years or even until they get married. That can be 20, 30, 40, years, if you will. But it's a lot more difficult when somebody is married and they're not having sex, because it's like when you get married, you have an expectation that sex is supposed to happen very frequently, and that's a part of like the unspoken expectation is that sex is going to be a part of our relationship. Like a healthy relationship involves sex. And sometimes, when it comes to somebody who you're in covenant with, it's very difficult when they're not cooperative, even in communication, because you can't change them. Like the only thing that you can change on a person is a diaper when they're a baby. But an adult, you can't change anything on a person. You can only influence their desire. And sometimes it's best to do your part on how can you influence their desire. Like that could be counseling, it could be, working out together, it could be just doing things together, because sometimes it's like people on the other side might lose interest in sex because they're like, they just feel like I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable without having sex because I'm tired, I don't feel like it, I'm not attracted to that person anymore, they're probably not attracted to me. Like, believe it or not, sometimes people don't want to have sex because they're ashamed of their own bodies. And even though you might be their spouse, they're ashamed to tell you that. So for them, it's just easier if they just don't expose themselves, because they feel like if they have sex with you, then ultimately you're going to lose interest in having sex with them and then you're going to leave. But at least if they don't have sex, they never expose the very thing that they don't feel good about. When it comes to the lack of sex, it actually leads to a deprivation of peace in your home. Like you have no harmony in your home. You don't feel restful. Like you think about like how many people, like they go to work tired, they come home tired, they wake up tired, they go to sleep tired, like they're physically exhausted because there's no peace. And it's kind of like when you don't have peace, you're tossing and turning, not just in your mind, but also like in your physical person. Like you don't have rest anywhere you turn, because you're trying to figure out, what did I do, or what is it about me that causes this person to no longer desire me? And that just causes you to not have peace, in your home. The other thing too, a lack of sex leads to desperation. Like if we're just totally honest, because a person who desires to have sex and their partner or their spouse is not willing to have sex with them, it's like now they develop this insatiable hunger for significance. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's like sometimes people have sex with somebody else just to feel significant about themselves. You think about this. Why would the wife who's married to her husband who has a multi-million-dollar company or corporation making great money, they have all of these houses everywhere, she has an affair with their gardener who they're paying $10 an hour for? Like, why would she do that? It's not about money. It's about her feeling significant, her feeling heard, her feeling seen. And it's not just women in that situation. Sometimes it's men. Like they want to be seen. They want to feel heard. They want to feel special. They want to feel significant. And so sometimes people, they cheat on their spouse just to feel significant. And it's like when somebody's in a sexless marriage, that's one of the first things that go is their level of significance that they feel the other person has for them, because they don't feel important at all. Because it's like some people have a different love language, and somebody whose love language is physical touch, when they're not getting physical touch, they feel like they're not being loved at all. And so it's hard for them to reciprocate love to somebody who they feel does not love them at all. And a lack of sex, it also leads to a drop in your self-esteem, because it causes you to question who are you and what are you doing wrong. And it causes you to develop this internal image that only you can see, but you have an outward expression. Because when people, let's just be real, when people are having sex on a regular basis, they show up differently. Like you hear people talk about like somebody just got that glow, compared to somebody else who like they're not really having sex on a regular basis in their marriage. Like they might be cranky, they might be irritable, they might be on edge, they might, take things out on each other. Again, road rage, we see that all the time. But those are all things that are a direct impact on somebody's self-esteem because if they feel bruised. Sometimes sex is one-sided, and it's like whoever controls the sex controls and influences the relationship at the highest level. And sometimes people that desire to have sex with their spouse and their spouse just has no interest whatsoever, they resent their spouse because it's almost like you have this invisible control over me that I feel, and maybe you know, but it's causing me to be broken in all of these other areas in my life, and it's causing me to feel bad about myself, and it's causing it to show up in just different areas of my life, and it's like it's all your fault, like you're controlling this. And what it does is it leaves people in a very vulnerable state. It's like when you're in a relationship and you're married and there is no sex going on at all, or very little, it just puts you in a very, very vulnerable state, if you will. And it's like some people don't realize how vulnerable somebody else can be. And people feel like no matter how vulnerable that you get, if you cheat, it's on you. Now, again, I understand both sides. However, people don't realize that at the end of the day, we're all human. Now, that's not a justification. It's not to say a man is going to be a man and him, like, this is not that at all. I'm saying that if you take the best person that you know in your life in this world and you put them in certain situations, they might show you a side of them that they've never seen before because they're so vulnerable. And I'm saying that when somebody's in a sexless marriage, like they become vulnerable and they do things that's not even them. Because at the same time, it's almost like they become somebody who they don't even know. They become somebody they don't even like. Because there's so much of them is wrapped up into this other person. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's just like when somebody wraps themselves up with either the wrong person or somebody who's going through something and this person doesn't realize what's going on. It's like they wrap themselves up, not just in the person, but in this person's problem that maybe haven't been quite identified. And that's unhealthy. And some people don't even realize that. But it's like all of that can cause you to have just like anger and hatred for a person. And when you operate from that perspective, it's very, very difficult for you to operate with income producing activities at the highest level. It's very difficult for you to be creative because the reality is this: I don't care who you are. You're just one decision away from being a multimillionaire. Like literally. Because it's all like you're one invention away, you're one book away, like you're one program, like you're just one thing away from being a multimillionaire. But my point is this, like all of us, we are just one thing away from having massive, fulfillment at the highest level, whatever that might be for any of us, because it's not the same thing. However, it's like not having sex can interfere with all of that. Like it can cause you to never tap into that creativity because it's buried with anger. It's buried with resentment. It's buried with questioning if you even have value. Do anybody want me for that matter? And that causes you to just eat away and just erode. And it causes you to not serve the people that you're meant to serve at the highest level, specifically if you're an entrepreneur or if you're a business owner, if you have some kind of invention or even a book inside of you that can help other people. Like sometimes when we are in these marriages with no sex, it's like we running hot because we don't want anybody to know our situation. And it's like when you don't want anybody to know your situation and you running hot, not only do you feel like an imposter, but you feel like the safest thing for you to do is just be non-existent. And when you're non-existent, all of your gifts, talents, skills, and abilities that can also help people on the other side, they're also non-existent as well. And so I just encourage you, if you are somebody who are in a sexless marriage, like understand the impact of your income. Now, there are certain things that you can't do anything about as it relates to the other person, but you can control you. That might be therapy, it might be working out, it might be exercising, it might be eating something different. And the most effective thing that I really believe is effective communication. Like effectively communicating with the other person and consistently doing this. It's not just a one-time event, because sometimes like people already have deemed that it's going to fail, it's not going to work, this person is not going to listen. And so they make just one attempt to say that they tried, even though they went into it with the expectation that it wasn't going to work. And so I encourage you to approach every single situation with the outcome you desire. One of my mentors told me this years ago. He said, only give energy to the outcome you desire. And so when you approach your spouse, even having a conversation, approach it with the expectation that whatever you desire, that's going to be the outcome, especially when it's positive. Because some people, they actually want a negative outcome. Like they want to get out of it, but they want the other person to leave and not them. So I just want to be clear in saying that this is a positive outcome. Like only give energy to the outcome you desire. And my hope is that something in this video resonate with you. If you might be the spouse where you're withholding sex, you don't have interest in sex, hopefully something in this video gave you a different perspective that maybe was communicated to you in a way that maybe your spouse couldn't have said it to you for you to actually receive it. And if you're on the other side, I just encourage you to just keep working at it. And I really believe in fighting for your marriage, because I believe that so many people, like, they give up and they quit too soon. However, I do think that sometimes we persevere for something that was never purposed to be in the first place. And only you know what that is, because so often it's like people hear from God, but really God is not God, it's their emotions. Like they are the God of their own emotions. Like that's how they govern their decisions based on how they feel. And sometimes people have gotten into relationships with the wrong person because this person had specific characteristics that tapped into what they wanted at that moment emotionally and had nothing to do with God at all. But they put all of the weight on him as if he deemed that person and made him that person's soulmate, if you will. So anyway, I think you understand what I'm saying. Prayerfully that something in this video resonated with you. I hope that you get some value from this. And my hope is that if you are in a sexless marriage, that it's only a matter of time before things turn around and it transform your situation. And now you can actually help somebody and be an encouragement, a model, and an inspiration, and even a teacher showing people what you did to get to where you are based on where you were and where they currently are, and helping them get from where they are to where you are. Like that's a victory. And it's like when anytime that we can take our pain and help somebody else with it, now we've turned pain into a purpose. And my hope is that if this is you, that you do that and you serve somebody else with it. But until the next time, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.